Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hope in the Light of Suicide. I'm Tammy White, founder of the Bobby White Foundation, and I'm here with...
Good evening and Happy New Year. I'm Bonnie Snyder, your co-host.
Yeah, Happy New Year. This is our first show back from the holidays. We were actually going to do this last week, but I was exposed to COVID at Christmas. So
I know, bummer.
So we couldn't do the show, but we're back now, so happy about that. Got 2 weeks off.
Yep, 2 weeks off, and it's interesting. I'm still trying to wrap my head around the fact that we're into our second year.
I know.
Like we are starting our second year.
This is our 49th episode. Next week will be our 50th. We'll have to do something for 50. I think I have some of my stuff left from my 50th birthday.
We don't want to talk about my 50th birthday. That was a little bit ago.
But anyways, so welcome back to you all out there. Bonnie and I had a meeting last week outside of this and outside of everything else, just to kind of talk about our vision for the show for this coming year, which we're like super excited about. A lot of the ideas, that we have floating around in our heads. I don't know, sometimes that's good or not, but they're floating.
Depends on what's floating.
They're floating. But first off, of course, we want to thank John from WeBeam TV and Rob and Dylan, because, we obviously can't do this without them, and we so much appreciate them giving us this platform to bring out to all of you guys,
Exactly. I mean, we adore our crew. Like you said, we couldn't do this without them, and every week, the shenanigans that goes on that set sometimes is like,
yeah, really,
it's a lot of fun, and like I said, we're blessed, to be able to have the platform.
So we want to involve you all more in our show also this coming year. But there's ways right now that you can help support us, which is, of course, our kindness page, which you can donate any level that you feel comfortable. Every little bit always helps. There's the page right there. There was a QR code somewhere, but anyways, we'll find it. And of course, we have our T-shirts, and there it is. There's the QR code. That'll take you back to that kindness page. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can always go to the foundation website. There's ways, I think, to donate on the foundation Facebook page. Mm-hmm. And speaking of the Facebook page, we have a new Facebook page for the show.
Nice. Yeah, so we talked about that.
We just we're building it. It's out there, so you can find it on Facebook. It's just Hope in the Light of Suicide, and we thought that would be another way with the foundation page that we can maybe get a little bit more interaction with you out there, commenting, giving us suggestions. We'll talk about a little segment that we've been talking about adding. What else am I forgetting?
There's also, for those of us, and when I say us, let me back up for a minute. Rob's got on the screen the T-shirts, like Tammy mentioned. We have the T-shirts both in the crew neck and the V-neck style. The V-neck is more cut for women than for men. And then we have the two designs, our original design, and then, the Hope, facsimile to the logo, right, for the show. There's also for those of us who do a lot of Amazon shopping, mm-hmm. That if you go to Amazon Smile.amazon.com.
Smile.amazon.com.
When I'm on my Amazon, I go Amazon Smile, and it pops up.
Yeah.
You mean this here? But Smile.amazon, and basically, you can choose whatever wherever you want to donate, your funds
charity
to.
of choice.
And, the foundation is one of those. And I know a lot of us shop on Amazon, and I frequently tell my friends, make sure that you're on the, Amazon Smile or, smile.amazon, misma cosa. They don't know Spanish for same thing, same. But you're not, it's like you're shopping on Amazon anyway, and when you click, payment, it's not adding anything to what you're already spending. And I know, a lot of people, myself included, do a lot of shopping on Amazon. And, I'm surprised, when I, get my little notification from Amazon that says, do you know that you just, to date, you've donated X amount of dollars to, the foundation. I'm biased, it's, I pick the foundation.
Well, and I have 3 Amazon accounts: personal account, gallery account, foundation account. So, yeah, we do, and especially since, COVID, a lot of people started really doing a lot of Amazon shopping. So, and like she says, it's not adding anything to your invoice or, whatever. Amazon donates a certain percentage to the charities, which is really great. And it's
their way of
smooth.
giving back.
Yeah, and I can't imagine how much they do, because I know what we do. I know what we do. So, something a little different on our set today.
Yeah, no, we have a piece.
This piece. This is an actual antique Chevy truck door. I believe it's a truck door. And the window actually does really work. It rolls up and down. But this piece, we've shown the piece before. You've seen this picture. This was done by my great nieces, Haley and Josie. That's Josie there working on the door. And her big sister, Haley, right there. I just adore these little girls. And they're not so little anymore. Christmas Eve, I was at their house, and Haley's taller than me now, and Josie's catching up. But they did this piece actually for the foundation. Was supposed to be for our auction, which was supposed to be in person, which of course it wasn't. Haley has done, this is the third door. Haley did doors for the first 2 Art for Hopes, and then Josie wanted to be a part of it the third year, and of course, year 3 and 4 we haven't been able to do, and it's kind of hard to auction something like this off virtually, so we're still working out some of the details, because we would like to get this piece auctioned off before, sometime this spring, so the girls can work on another piece for our 5th annual Art for Hope, which will be in September of next year, hopefully in person. So, like I said, these are done by our great nieces. They loved their Uncle Bobby a lot, and it's amazing what they do, and they want to be a part of things. So we have that. So this will be on set quite often until somebody decides to snag it. And I'm going to start bringing some other pieces. I have a piece that's 36 by 48. It's a replication of Van Gogh's Starry, Starry Night. It's really pretty good. And but we have a lot of other pieces that we're going to be showing and also getting up on the website. There are some pieces on the website that are available for sale right now, and it's kind of through the foundation, through the gallery. So, anyways, I was so happy when I went up there Christmas Eve, and we had it at our nephew's, and did all the gift giving and stuff, and my nephew comes over and, Tammy, come here. And I was going to ask him for this door so that we could have it on set, and I totally forgot about it. And so he goes, follow me. So we walked out into the garage, and he goes, you want to take this? And I was like, oh, Michael, yes. I said, I just forgot to ask. And he was like, okay, this is what we're going to do. So he put it in the back of the truck Christmas Eve, and
here it is.
And here it is.
You know, it's a good piece for, someone who not only, when I look at it, the nostalgia of, the Chevy truck and, back when, we said things were innocent back then. I like this song. I like the Beatles. Can I say I'm a Beatles fan? I like the Beatles. Yeah, I'm biased. I was more Bee Gees than I was Bee Gees and Beatles. But there was a little rivalry going on, I think, between the Beatles and the Bee Gees there for a bit. But nevertheless, I like their music, and the girls picking this particular song, "Let It Be." That title has, when you think about what we're doing, as a show, and the journey that people are on, as it relates to grief and loss, and other issues, addiction, recovery. Let It Be is so fitting for those journeys, I think.
Yeah, and the first two, I think the other two doors were also Beatles lyrics, and Bobby was a huge Beatles fan, and so they have picked out songs that kind of relate to their uncle, these first three. So actually, Continental Plumbing they won the auction for the first two doors, and they have the first two doors hanging in their office.
Oh, nice.
So I'll see what happens with this one. I'm excited for this one to have a new home and to see what the girls do next for the foundation. I don't have a place to hang it.
No, nor do I.
That's why I brought it down to this.
Nor do I.
It never even came in the house. I just brought it down to the studio. Like, John, do we have a place to put this for the show?
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, those words, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Mm-hmm. And sort of like, well, wait a minute, let it be. Does that mean you want me to maintain some complacency? And I'm like, you got to kind of dig deep into what, I think we all interpret the lyrics a little differently than others. It says one thing, to me, it might say something completely different to someone else.
Right.
Like I said, I like the symbolism of hope and, overcoming, resiliency. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm just glad to have it here. Mm-hmm. But I would like for it to find a new home.
Yes. Yes. It's a lonely door.
Yeah, it needs a new home. It needs a new home. So that's, I was just so excited about having that down here. I was going to get like New Year's, stuff to do the studio, and then I was like, nah, the door's there. The door is there.
Yeah.
So last year we reviewed, and I didn't look it up yet when we had this discussion last week, 3 or 4 books.
I'm going to say at least I know we had several books. And yeah.
We didn't review all of them, but we did pretty good with at least 3 of them. I'm thinking 4, but maybe 3.
See, in my head, I'm thinking 2. Because
no, there has to be more than that. I haven't gone back into the previous shows to check.
Well, and I think a lot of it with the book reviews, the information across the books, are very interwoven within one another. Mm-hmm. Even when you consider, or I should say, considering each of the books are written by different authors. I mean, there was a couple that he wrote that, he wrote, this one and this one was written by the same author. This one was written by somebody completely different. But I like the way the books, complemented themselves.
Right.
And like for me, the two that, stick in my head more so, which is why my brain is thinking two, was the one by Stephanie Jose, and the other one by David
Wolfout.
Thank you. It's like, we were talking about the not so much the grief stages, but the Survivor Bill of Rights.
Right.
Because what I liked about that particular book, and how he laid it out. There are so many parts of that book that spoke to me personally.
And it's a short read, really. That one is, but it's packed with stuff that you can take away so easily.
It's a nice, easy read.
It's an easy read, and the way that he writes, it's easy to bring that to your life. You can see that in you.
There's some books that this is just how I look at, my perception. There's some books that I read that they seem to be instructional.
Right.
And you kind of get like, okay, I'm reading this book, and all right, and you don't necessarily feel a connection with the book. What I liked about the ones that we've previewed to date is, as I'm reading, it was almost as if someone was talking to me. Mm-hmm. Rather than having a book that's talking at me,
right.
I'm having a book that's talking to me. And for me, what's interesting, I feel you're talking at me and not to me. Of course,
right.
for me,
yeah.
that goes back to
right.
Something that Pat had said. But like I said, at the same time, I loved that. What made it an easy read is both authors were talking to you. Mm. And I think that's important, with any book or article that you're reading about, grief and loss and overcoming, that the piece speaks to you and not at you.
Right. Well, otherwise you're not going to get anything from it, and it's like, why am I doing this? You're not helping me, and we have enough of that anyways.
Or it's like you're adding to, like I'm already feeling bad, and you're adding to it,
Right.
I need to be in a different, if I'm in a particularly somber, or negative place, I need to be able to focus on what I'm doing and processing those emotions at the same time. And there are just some things that I can't, like, if I'm feeling this way, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But if I'm feeling this way and I'm reading something that, it's like, I understand how you're feeling. It's okay.
It's okay.
I'm bound to stick with it.
And speaking of which, since you said that, it's really kind of interesting. The new book that we're going to go through for this year, starting this year, is How to Carry What Can't Be Fixed. And this author, and it's a journal, but Megan Devine, she is the author of It's Okay Not to Be Okay. Mm-hmm. So this is going to be our next book. We'll probably, we'll go talk about it a little bit today, but probably really start it next week, and that'll give you guys time if you want to go through this with us. Again, go to smile.amazon.com and you can pick this book up. I'm also going to have a link to it on the website. But this is like, I think the other one that you liked was kind of interactive.
The book by Stephanie Jose.
Yeah,
that
was the one that was, okay. So this one is an interactive book also. She calls it a journal for grief. There's pages in here, and the way that she does this, you can tear out some of the pages and use them, and you're encouraged to write and to color and, do all this stuff. But also, she has on her website, I think it's Something to Heal. I have it here. Yeah, the grief, here-after.com journal. And Rob had up there one of the pages that there's like 35 pages from this journal that you can download and work through that if you don't feel like tearing up your...
And what I like about this, I mean, to me, tearing a page out of a book to me is sacrilege. But what Rob is showing right now, are some examples of what she has in the book. To your point, because as we've said before, as we're doing the show, grief and loss is personal to every individual. And what I like about this book and Stephanie Jose's book is it, along with, providing you with information and talking you through, the process of grief, it allows, it affords you the opportunity to, go into the book and, journal your own thoughts. Because, as you and I have, have talked, and, as we do, mind you, a year into the, been doing this a year, the show anyway, there are times where, one might hear, you say, you know what, I have a hard time doing this. And I might say, oh no, I'm not, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't have a hard time with that, or that's not as big a struggle for me. But then I'm really struggling with this. And, you might say, you know what, that's not really a struggle for me.
Right.
And then there are times where you struggle with that one too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so I love, and so, with this book and the other books like it, I like having that ability to personalize the information, and make it applicable to me, because I like it. Same thing like going to school. We go to school and we're taught all of these things, and they, really don't make a whole lot of sense, or it's like, why am I learning this until you get out in the world? Aha. This is how I can apply this to my life.
Well, and to the point, grief is different for everybody, and it's hard to work through.
It is.
And at some times it may be harder than other times. And these books that we review and reference, they're not suicide specific. For the most part.
Yeah.
The one by David Wolfelt was suicide specific.
Those words.
Roll off the lips here. So, but the majority of the ones that we have done have not been suicide specific. Came out that time. So, you don't have to be going through a suicide-specific grief to go through these with us, right?
Well, yeah. Exactly. Because I think, for us, this, journey was spawned out of, a suicide loss.
Right.
However, a loss is a loss regardless to how it happened, and it's not that, suicide, we're going to corner the market, or suicide corners the market on grief.
Right.
Because I would, look at, similarly, we're still dealing with this, blessed pandemic.
Yeah, exactly.
And, I think of, like a classmate of mine, who, Mom was diagnosed on Tuesday, and Thursday she was gone. And this was, early days of the pandemic, and so it was like, wasn't able to be there, when Mom passed. Wasn't able to have, a proper funeral, what we consider a proper funeral. wasn't I able to, so that whole, for lack of a better way to put it, normal way that we think of people dealing with grief and loss. Okay, it's like you are told of the loss, and then you go and you plan for the service, and then you're actually able to go and attend the celebration of life and say your proper goodbyes to this individual. But none of that could happen. So how do you process through that?
And so many people have had to live that with this pandemic. It's just so sad.
Well, even that. I mean, as you know, like with me, I'm coming up on, next month, 3 years, for Aiden, and I still grapple with the fact that I did not say goodbye, and people ask me all the time, do you think that would have made a difference? Do you think, what difference would it have made? And I was like, it would have made a lot of difference. You understand, me being here, him being there. As much as I hate to admit, in a lot of ways, I think I was robbed, of the ability to not only say goodbye to him, he popped up on my feed today. This picture.
Yeah,
you saw it. Yeah, you responded to it.
I saw that.
But going back, and looking at this particular book and the other books like it, being able to take those processes and write them down and apply them to what is the quote-unquote lesson that the book is trying to show us, or the book is trying to tell us. So I'm excited to dive into this one.
I am too, and you asked me where I found it, and I still can't remember. But I just thought it was as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, that's got to be our next book. So I'm excited to get into that too. And actually, I wanted to start earlier, but I was like, no, let's wait so we can all do it together. So I think it's gonna be really good. Yeah, and not being able, like you were saying, not being able to have those goodbyes. We did. Of course, we didn't do the normal funeral thing. I don't want to say fortunately because it's not fortunately, but both of Bobby's parents had passed, and they were devout Catholics. And so it actually made it easier for me because Bobby did not want a funeral. So we ended up having a barbecue and a bonfire and a party in our backyard. And I think I said it before, it was only supposed to be like a few hours. And I think it was supposed to start at noon and end like at 4 or 7 or 4 o'clock or something like that. It ended up starting like at 10:30 in the morning and lasted till 1 o'clock in the morning. So we got that with Bobby, and it does make a difference here to your heart and to your mind. It really it makes a big difference. And
interesting when you talk about we didn't do a traditional service. How again when you're thinking of grief and loss and stuff like that, how people think, well, it's not normal for you not to do this. My one of my really dear friends, again, interestingly, somebody I graduated high school with. And I've talked about her on the show a few times. She lost her daughter at the same time I lost Pat, and then recently her husband. And when her husband passed, his instructions: the only thing I want is taps. That's it. I don't want a funeral. I don't want only thing I want is taps. And it took some some doing. Thankfully, not it wasn't as difficult as we thought it was going to be, but, some guys came, a captain and what was she, a staff sergeant, came down from MacDill, Air Force Base,
Oh, cool.
reservists, that's where their unit is, and they did taps for us, did taps for him. And, like when he came in and we're like, you are the service. And we're like, what? And it's like, that's all he wanted. Same thing.
Right.
Like barbecue, after they played taps, my friend stood up and said, okay, you know what? That's what he wanted. Now let's have a party, how he would have wanted us to have a party.
Right.
And, it was, barbecue and, a couple of his favorite drinks going on. And, people just, it started early in the morning, like, yours went through, I don't know what time it ended, because, I ended up having to, I forgot what I had to do afterwards. But something had to do with Greg, because he was there too. I was like, okay, we had to go. I forget. But anyway, let's do it, party style.
Well, and years ago with my first husband, Michael wanted it the same way. He actually, we lived in Fort Lauderdale. He wanted his ashes thrown off the top of this hotel at the corner of A1A and Sunrise Boulevard, and it was down in the area of the bars that we used to hang out back then. And we were trying to figure out how to do it, because by then they ended up having security, so we couldn't sneak up to the roof. And I was like, how am I going to sneak up to the roof of this hotel? And it wasn't happening, but it took me 5 months after he died before I could even do anything. And again, and it was funny, because back then, this was back in '87 when he passed away, and we had the celebration in '88, but my mom, she was at that time, how can you not have a funeral? That's just not, and she never even met my husband. She didn't even really like him, even though she never met him. But, and so we ended up just having a big party at the bar that we hung out, free drinks, which was a big mistake on my part, and food and everything. And then about a week or two later, Bobby and I and one of Michael's other best friends, we just went out on the beach and scattered his ashes. And it's funny, because now, all these years later, with my mom, she's like, oh no, we're not having a funeral, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. And she was all for, how we did Bobby's, and it's kind of funny how things have changed over time.
It is, I'm a little distracted here, and I apologize. I have an 11-year-old that is like, I'm locked out. Okay, it's like, I just opened the garage.
Is it the one that's supposed to go to the doctor's appointment?
Yeah.
And supposed to be home?
Yeah.
So, anyways.
So, we told you, this is a totally unscripted show, and you never know what happens. So I'm sitting there looking like, okay, the camera's not on me. I can do this real quick. And then, bam, thanks, Rob. Here I am.
Yeah, and I didn't do it. Dylan finally showed me how to turn off the ringer on my phone, so it's not, I think our last show, my phone went off like 3 times. Like, I know I turned this thing off. I can't do it.
But what I when I sat back when we had these little, of course we are unscripted, but when we have these little, I don't want to call them mishaps, between ringing phones and text messages I can't get to the house, or our producer drilling holes in the wall. It adds to, to me, when I look at this, it's like, it adds the authenticity, there's a word for me, to what I want to call the spirit of the atmosphere of the show. Because, it's like, Yeah, I think some people think, oh, they're in a TV, they're in a TV studio, and so everything is soundproofed and everything like that. Then all of a sudden you hear, zzz,
No, it's not.
or you hear, a phone ringing, or, whatnot. And it's like, guys, this is very symbolic of real life, and sometimes things happen when you least expect it, and you learn how to adapt, or you develop the ability to adapt. Oh, my phone is ringing. All right, well, you know what? The show will still go on, but how do I shut my ringer off while the show is going on, because I don't want to ring that time? Or, hey, the show is taping. How do you tell the boss, stop drilling? It's like, dude, you're drilling. Okay, I guess you can drill. Cheers to you.
Well, and our subject matter is kind of at times, is heavy, and we don't want this to be that specifically all the time, as less as we can. We're gonna obviously have our moments just because it's just the way it is, but we really want to, like what we do with Art for Hope. It's not a sad, even though we're dealing with suicide, the event isn't a sad event. The events and with the show are meant to help and be uplifting, and to show that even though you're going through something really, really bad, that there, like the show says, there's light. Mm-hmm. It might be hard to find sometimes, but it is there. This is what I just saw this again. The saying is, even though there's clouds in the sky, the sun is still shining on the other side.
Yeah, and I like the fact that and I think again, thinking back to our own personal journeys, when people look at them, it's like it's going to be okay. Don't say that to me. No. It's not. And I find myself saying, no, it's not. But then later on, I find myself, taking a step back and saying, okay, you know what? Maybe it is gonna, it's going to be okay. Maybe not in the sense that we want it to be okay. However, we're going to get to, we're still surviving. Could we do this if we weren't okay, okay. And granted, it depends on how you define the okay. However, I would submit, if we weren't experiencing some semblance of being okay, we couldn't do this.
True.
If we weren't, experiencing some semblance of okay, we wouldn't be able to bring the message and talk about it to other people. Yeah, there are times where as you said, when we're telling our story, or we are bringing the message that we get choked up, and tears are flowing all over the place. Like, give me a Kleenex. That's okay.
Right.
It is okay.
It's just okay. A different form of okay. It's not going to be what it was. Mm-hmm. And we're doing this. You and I are doing this just as well as anybody else out there. We're learning. We're learning how to live with, how to react, how to process everything differently, because our lives are not ever going to be what they were before this.
Well, and where I see, along with, this journey, it does, there is growth. Because if I sit back and I think back, in the early days, and no problem acknowledging, I'm addicted to Facebook, and there are times where, something will pop up on my social media feed, and it's a memory, like, mm-hmm. As one popped up this morning, and it was Ada and I. If I were to fast forward, or not fast forward, rewind, okay, so now we're coming up on year 3. If I were to rewind, 3 years ago, and I saw that picture, I would probably, I'd break out in tears. I'd start bawling, oh my gosh, like, this is so unfair. Something popped up on my feed. The other day it was, Pat and I had on matching outfits, and again, I'm like, oh my gosh, I miss him, and I still ask the question why, and that growth that came with that. When it actually, it was Greg and Jennifer who we had, on the show, last year. Am I supposed to ask why? Am I supposed to? I'm a spiritual person. Being mindful to somebody who may not, or I respect those who don't believe. But anyway, in my beliefs, am I supposed to question God? Why? Why did you do this?
Right.
And the answer that I got, back was, this is when you need them most. You're asking why, it's because it's when you need them most. And so going through, or getting those little snippets of information, whether it is from other individuals, whether it is through your own processing, whether it is the books that we review, it does define for us what okay looks like, or what is our new okay, what's our new normal.
And it's okay to have a different okay, because it's not going to be the same.
Like my okay ain't your okay. Your okay isn't my okay. Now there's times where our okays might be similar,
right,
but it's still my okay and your okay.
And you can't have my okay.
No, you can't have it. I don't even know if I want to share my okay with you. But then again, you know what? I'll share my okay, but you can't have it. It's still mine.
We might have to get that other book too.
It's okay.
It's okay not to be okay.
I think it's a good compliment to. I want to say I think I have. When I think about the books that I have in my library at home, I want to say I have that book.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to get it for the library for the foundation, as we grow that to help people and want to have some of these references available to people as things progress. And think about. I have to go back and maybe look at the first couple episodes of our show to see if there's the difference between our first show to where we are today. Because, we have done this almost every single week for a year. And you don't, and this happens to me just in my life and my friends, and particularly my neighbor, because you're going through this process, this grief process, however it came about, and you may feel like you're not progressing, you're not moving forward, you feel like I should be somewhere else, I should be further along in this, and there's no set way to do it, there's no set time to do it. And my neighbor reminds me all the time, because you get in your head too much sometimes, and it's like, man, I really haven't. And then she's like, Tammy, look what you have done. We have art. You have Art for Hope. You have the foundation. You're doing a freaking TV show. And look at the people that you've helped, and the folders that have gone out, and the requests for people, and starting to get more people in the community referring us and saying, stuff, and partnering with other organizations. And I have to say, yeah, I guess. but sometimes it still doesn't register, But
I think what I find interesting, as it relates to the show, and even in my own personal life, I have the tendency to, certain people will watch the show and critique, or, somebody knows, because I hear all the time, you do what? I didn't know you did that. And people know, it's funny because, people instinctually, fall to that belief system. Oh, Bonnie, you're a mental health professional.
Right.
You know, this is kind of what you know, it's like, yes. However, I don't think they understand what I do in my professional life does not always equate to, you know, and I doing the show, this is part of my personal, you know, I consider this my personal life. I do this as part of my personal life, although, you know, I shared with you before we went on air, my professional life has been like, you do what? How come we didn't know about this? You know, and it's, you know, mind you, I've gotten the, you know, the okay from, you know, the organization that I work for. You know, it's like there's no conflict, you know, anything like that. Oh, you need to write an article, you know, kind of like an op-ed, so it can go in our newsletter, you know, to talk about the show, because it is, you know, like people are like, oh, it is so relevant to, you know, what's going on. It is so relevant to, you know, when you think about all the resources that are out, you know, for people, you know, had we not, and I was like, oh, okay, I was like, it's my personal life. I kind of kept, you know, kept it separate from the professional side, you know.
Right.
Oftentimes the two don't blend. But yeah, you know, I have people, you know, hey, watch the show and critique it. And, or even I don't know about you. Have you ever watched and cringe?
Oh yeah, there's been a couple episodes that I was like, what were you thinking wearing that? Remember that one blouse?
The second show, number 2.
Yeah, it was right at the beginning. I was like, do not ever wear that top ever again. not on the show, at least. You know, I was like, oh my gosh. When I watch, I critique the show. I critique me.
I can see people going back now. I want to see what.
Oh yeah,
But I do remember getting that the text message from you. I'm never wearing that top again. And I didn't think about, you know, I was like, what is she talking about? And then I went and looked at it. I understand what she's talking about. And I was like,
I think I've only worn that blouse once recently and made sure that I was wearing something else too. I was like,
of course, for me, I was thinking ratings.
It's not all that much to look at, but
no, I was like, wow, Tammy. That was a cute.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Well, see, it's not all gloom and doom on the show.
No.
We do have the capacity to laugh and, you know, poke fun at ourselves, and, you know, or not. I'm not poking fun at myself. I think, you know, hey, Tammy, that was, you know, I really liked that episode. But no, you know, seriously, you know, going back and looking at it all, you know, it is.
Well, I mean, I'm sure people say to you, like, you know, they say to me, you know, what you're doing, and I don't know if you think that, but because I don't so much, but people say, you know, this is a really great thing that you're doing. You know, we really need it. Mm-hmm. You know, and I mean, I think that it is, but it's not like, oh, we're doing this great thing. You know, we're doing it because our experience. We want to help other people. And it's because of our experience, however bad it was. Yeah, we just, you know, just.
I look at it as a twofold thing. On this hand, you know, doing the show and, you know, what we do when we're not on the set taping the show. You know, when we're out in the community doing our community, you know, respective community things, it is about helping others and, you know, bringing the message, bringing hope. You know, is our title. You know, bringing hope to others, so let them know, yes, in the midst of, you know, what is possibly, you know, one of, if not the worst experience in your life, you know. Here's, you know, there is hope. You know, we say that when we, you know, write out the show every time we do it. Always remember, there's always hope. At the same time, I find that it's also a benefit to myself. because
Exactly.
it allows me to, continue processing. It allows me, the ability to be able to say that Aiden's death, Patrick's death, Bobby's death, Michael's death, the people that were, dear, I'm sure I can, list other people, but those are the four that we talk about the most on the show, that those deaths were not in vain.
Right.
Yes, we want them here. Yes, we want them to still be, a part of our daily lives. Yes, we miss them. And, every time I go on the corner, whatever, the boys were, one of the boys was in my room last night, and he'd got out of the shower and I heard something drop in their bathrooms. Like my bathroom roll is here, and their bathroom roll's on the other side. And I'm like, is that Devin or something else? And I was like, no, Devin's asleep. All right, so what dropped in the bathroom? And it was, we had this, big bottle of body wash. All right, so was it just kind of sitting on the edge and it just kind of vibrated itself off, or, George, Pat, which one of y'all knocked this off? But no, seriously, and so again, it's allows me to continue processing the losses. It allows me to keep their names, their memories, alive and well, and if it helps one person,
Yeah,
we've done our job.
and that's exactly that's exactly it. It's in a way, it's kind of like when I lost Bobby, my mom wanted me to sell our property and move back to Washington, and it's like I've lived here for 25 years. I can't let the 30 years that we were together be in vain, or just go away because of one bad day. Granted, it was pretty horrific, but it was one day out of almost 30 years, and we can't let our losses, them, be for no reason.
Correct.
That they were too important to us.
Well,
And to other people.
absolutely. I mean, there's that phrase that says everything happens for a reason. We may not understand what the reason is at the moment. Sometimes I think that's the stupidest phrase that someone's ever come up with. However, I take a step back and I say, you know what? There is a reason why this happened. We may not understand it right at that very moment.
And we don't have to like it.
No. However, what we do is we take it and we process it, and hopefully use it to the greater good. As kind of as we are here.
Speaking of which, too, we talked about starting a new segment, and we only have a little bit of time to talk about it, so we need to get this in. We want you guys to be a little bit more interactive with us. So, like I said, we started the Facebook page, so either through the Hope in the Light of Suicide Facebook page or the Foundation Facebook page when the show airs. If you have something you want to say, or comments, or something that you want us to talk about or deal with, or you have something you want to share with us that we can share with others out there, please comment or message. If you don't want it public right then, message us through either of the Facebook pages, or and you can email at hopetvshow@bobbywhitefoundation.org. And so that's something that we wanted to do for this new year, is to include you out there a little bit more in our conversation here.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when we think of I would say, unfortunately, it would be nice to be live, but we're not. But like you said, please, there's we have that faithful following.
Well, and it'll give us that delay time. Will give us time so that we can go through, what you want to share. And please, when the show airs, or even afterwards, because it's on everything. We even found out it was on Twitch. That's when I got to remember. Like and share the show, please. Tag people if you think it's relevant to them, or it may be something that they may be interested in following. Follow us. However all that social media stuff works.
And in addition to that, as we're down to our last minute or so, also be mindful to have those hotline numbers,
Yes.
either in your phone or readily at hand, or engrave them to your brain, because you never know when you will have to use them. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask somebody, are you thinking about hurting yourself? That might be the very thing that those may be the very words to save someone's life.
Yeah, there's the numbers up there, and whenever I go out and speak at events, I have people pull out their phones, and pretty much everybody, they pull out their phones and they put those numbers in, and it's good to have as a resource.
And request the folders if you need them.
Yes, I was going to mention that too. Yeah, please, contact us. I'll, be happy to mail out the folders to anybody that would like them. We've added a new little packet of forget-me-not flowers to the packets. So,
Woo.
our first show for the year. Yay!
Yes, well, thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah, thank you so much, and please always remember, there's hope.
Always hope.
Thank you.